Welcome back, everyone. In this segment, I will cover the reserve players for the Tigers as well as the relief pitchers. In the outfield, the Tigers have a player by the name of Akil Baddoo. And while I'm not familiar with him, he hit .315 with 5 home runs this spring training. Apparently, he has never been above A ball before. However, if Nomar Mazara struggles, I could see him being inserted into right field fairly easily. And he's only 22 years old on top of that. So he may very well be the Tigers outfielder, or one of the Tigers outfielders of the future, to be sure. The other outfielder is Victor Reyes, who I believe we're all familiar with. The only thing about him is he going to be able to cut down his strikeouts, since he strikes out at a high rate without having a ton of power, which I thought by now he would develop more so. He has a power hitter's body, but it's just never translated at the major league level so far into significant power numbers. The utility infielders will be Harold Castro and Nicole Goodrum. And again, Nicole Goodrum has a very high strikeout rate too, and considering that he hasn't hit more than, I believe, 18 home runs in a season, his job may very well be on the line. And from reports that I've read, it is. The backup catcher will be Grayson Griner, who hit .375 in spring training, but we know he doesn't tend to hit for a very high average, usually somewhere below 200 and not without much power. So an upgrade for the Tigers at some point in time in the future, I believe, will be needed there for sure. The other starting pitchers will be Tariq Schoolball, and I hope I've pronounced his name correctly, who struggled last year. However, in spring training this year, he had a 1.59 ERA. If I had to guess as to how he'll pitch this year, I don't think he's going to pitch as well as he pitched in spring training, but he ought to be able to pitch a lot better than he did last year. Again, there was really no spring training last year and a very disjointed schedule. Again, his numbers for last year I would set aside. Another starting pitcher will be Julio Tran, who I remember pitching for the Braves. So far in spring training in spring training this year, he had a 5.52 ERA. However, apparently a lot of that was due to one bad start. But last year he didn't pitch very well either. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with him during the course of this season. One of their other starting pitchers is Jose Urina, who is being compared to being a younger version of Ivan Nova, who the Tigers had signed last year and got rid of, presumably to make room for him on the roster. And then the last starting pitcher will be Casey Mize, who, while he pitched well last year, there seems to be a question as to his walk rate being as high as it is. If I recall correctly, I believe Justin Verlander had the same problem when he first started out for the Tigers. And then after about 3 years in, he was fine. I know in 2008, Justin Verlander had a very wretched year. And the question was going to be, could he rebound from that? And not only did he's never had anything close to that type of season since. So I wouldn't read too much into the particulars of Casey Mize. I think he's going to be a great pitcher for the Tigers. I think eventually he will learn how to do what he's doing and not walk so many batters. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not reading too much into that. If he were to do this for a couple more years, I would start being concerned, but the fact that he didn't pitch very many innings last year, it's not at all a concern for me at this stage, especially since the Tigers aren't going to be contending, in my opinion, this year anyway. Among the relief pitchers, you have Gregory Soto, who had a 2.7 ERA in spring training, and his ERA was 4.3 last year. I don't think there's anything to add about that. I think 4.3 is about right. He's going to be one of the Tigers' better relief pitchers, I would say. Then you have Jose Cisnero. I think we know what he's all about. You have Daniel Norris, who got moved to the bullpen in late 2019 from the starting rotation, and his strikeout rate has gone up while his ERA has come down a bit. Right now, I'd say being a reliever is what's saving Daniel Norris's job with the Tigers for sure. I'm still surprised he's pitching with them, but if he's getting better, it would take a lot right now for the Tigers to give up on him. And then you have Derek Holland, who last year had a 6.86 ERA. However, this year in spring training, he had an ERA of 0 with 1 walk. So who knows what's going to happen with him during the course of the season. Is he going to pitch like he did last year, or is he going to pitch more like he did in spring training? It'll be interesting to find that out. And then you have Buck Farmer, who struggled in spring training this year. I'm not too concerned about Buck Farmer. He struggled last year, I think, for the same reason that Matt Boyd did. His strikeout rate was lower, but again, the way spring training was and the way the season was, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But there is something else I will mention about him later on that you might want to keep your eye out for. Then you have Tyler Alexander, who they're saying is not an overpowering pitcher. Well, in my mind, if he's not an overpowering pitcher, how did he tie the major league record with 8 consecutive strikeouts last year? I think his upside's tremendous, and why he's not vying for a starting position, I don't know. I think that's where he would be really, really well suited to be, and for whatever reason, this is now 2 managers that have not agreed with me. And perhaps I'm wrong on this, but I don't think I am. I would very much have him be a starting pitcher. And why he isn't, I have no idea. Then you have Brian Garcia, who had a 1.66 ERA last year, which, considering everything that went on with the Tigers in the pandemic, is excellent and would be anyway. In spring training this year, he had a 4.26 ERA. I think you can discount what he did in spring training. I think he may very well be the Tigers' closing pitcher this year. Whether or not his ERA is 1.66 remains to be seen. And then last but not least is Michael Fulmer, who got moved to the bullpen from the starting rotation after he struggled mightily last year and didn't do too well this year in spring training. Now, bear in mind, Michael Fulmer missed all of 2019 with Tommy John surgery. As a matter of fact, he missed about a season, well over a season and a half with that. Came back last year, struggled mightily, and has struggled in spring training this year. I would say if he doesn't do better at some juncture of the season, I believe he's finished. He'll at least be finished with the Tigers, but the fact he's not a starting pitcher is got all kinds of red flags and alarm bells all over it. Do I blame A.J.Hinch for doing this? Perhaps not, but I think this is really Michael Fulmer's last chance to see if he's got anything left in his tank, and it's possible he doesn't. It's going to be very sad, because if he's finished, I believe I said it last year, but if I didn't, I'll say it now, and that is I think not having a very healthy and strong Michael Fulmer as a starter or period will set the Tigers franchise back 5 years. In addition to some other predictions I'm going to make for the course of the season, might be a bit more than that with the other things I'm going to mention added to that. What surprised me about the roster this year is that you have no Jake Rogers, who, while he hit for power the limited time he was up in 2019, he didn't hit for a very high average. I was very surprised that he did not play at all last year with the Tigers, and his future very much remains in doubt. He's now 27 years old, I believe, and if it's not now for him, when is it going to be? Also, Taylor Demerit, who shocked me by his power, he got released by the Tigers because he struggled at the onset of spring training, and apparently he's going to go back to the Braves. In essence, since he was the lone player, or I think he was one of 2 players, whichever it was, that the players got in the Shane Green deal, that means the Tigers pretty much gave Shane Green to the Braves for nothing now. And I don't understand why Taylor Demerit is not in the mix for the future of the Tigers. I mean, how much could he have struggled after he showed a lot of promise, in my opinion, in 2019. Now, maybe I missed something last year, and I'm not privy to what happened in spring training this year, But it's just very, very shocking to me that he's not even a part of the organization now. In the next segment, I will cover the Tigers' opponent a little bit and what's occurred this offseason with them. This will be their opponent for opening day tomorrow. And I will have a few more predictions for you after that. Stay tuned to the 2021 Major League preview and Detroit Tigers preview on Ed's Sports Channel.